Welcome aboard the Ferry of Knowledge. My name is Luca, and I'll be your captain tonight. As we begin our journey, find a comfortable position, somewhere you can rest, and allow the day to slowly loosen its hold. In a moment, we'll set sail together, leaving behind noise, distraction, and the weight of the waking world. Take a deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth as the ferry of knowledge quietly departs. Long before strangers came to his shore, Polyphemus had already lived a full life shaped by an older world. He had been born in an age when the earth was not yet settled into the order men would later expect of it. The great struggles between the Titans and the gods had torn through the foundations of the world, leaving behind scars that never fully healed. Mountains had been thrown upward, seas had been split and reclaimed. The land itself remembered violence, even when it lay quiet. It was from this unfinished world that beings like the Cyclops emerged. They were not accidents, nor simple monsters. They were remnants, shaped by a time when raw force mattered more than law, and survival depended not on cooperation, but on strength. The Cyclops were born large and powerful because the world that made them demanded it. There were few boundaries then, and fewer protections. Polyphemus was one of them. He was born to Poseidon, whose power ruled the restless sea, and to Thoosa, a nymph of the wild and shifting coast. From his father, Polyphemus inherited size, force, and a temper that could rise suddenly, like waves driven by a distant storm. From his mother, he inherited attachment, a pull toward place rather than people, toward land rather than courts or councils. He had been enormous even as a youth. His body grew tall and broad, thick with muscle shaped by work rather than training. His arms were heavy and strong, capable of lifting stone as easily as men lifted tools. His skin was roughened by wind and sun, marked by years spent beneath open sky rather than within shelter. At the center of his face sat his single eye. To men, it would later seem unnatural. To Polyphemus, it was simply how the world appeared. He saw not in fragments, but in a single, uninterrupted field. Depth without division, motion without distraction. The Cyclopes were said to have one eye because they were made for focus rather than complexity. They did not weigh possibilities or consider opposing truths. They perceived what was in front of them, wholly and directly. Polyphemus's mind followed the same pattern. He was not foolish. He remembered paths, seasons, sounds. He knew which sheep would stray and which would not. He understood how long milk could sit before it soured, how fire behaved when starved of air, how stone responded when pushed or struck. He planned within the limits of his world, and within those limits, he was capable. What he was not taught was restraint. There had been no one to teach him the customs of men. No one had told him that strength should be moderated, or that strangers might arrive deserving of care. Those laws arose where people lived close together, dependent on one another. Polyphemus had lived alone. He had claimed an island as his home, a rough place of slopes and caves, ringed by sea and untouched by cities. The goats that roamed there had multiplied freely, and he had taken them into his keeping. He had learned to guide them, shelter them, and kill them when needed. Life had followed a steady rhythm, repeated until it required no thought. His cave had become his world. It had been large enough to contain his body and his flock. deep enough to protect against heat and cold. He had sealed its entrance with a stone so massive that no other being could have moved it. Inside, he had built a life of simple abundance. Milk stored in bowls, cheese stacked and aging, fire marking the passage of time along the ceiling. He had spoken rarely, and mostly to himself. There had been no reason for more. His voice echoed back to him, whole and undivided, just as his sight did. He had sung sometimes, low, wordless sounds shaped by breath and memory rather than language. The gods had not guided him. Poseidon had not taught him mercy. Zeus had not demanded hospitality of him. Those expectations belonged to another kind of world, one built for many, not for one. Years had passed this way, quietly, completely. Polyphemus had never been challenged. His strength had never been tested against anything equal. The island had belonged to him, and nothing had ever arrived to dispute that claim. This had been the world as it was, and it had endured, until the moment when something unfamiliar approached, carrying with it laws Polyphemus had never learned, and expectations he had never been given reason to understand. Now the island rests in its familiar rhythm. The sun climbs steadily, warming the stone and grass. The goats move across the slopes in loose groups, their bells soft and irregular, a sound Polyphemus knows as well as his own breath. He walks among them, staff in hand, guiding without urgency, his single eye scanning the land in slow, practiced sweeps. Everything is as it has always been. Then the sea changes. It is not loud at first. There is no crash of waves, no sudden violence. It is a difference in pattern, a disruption Polyphemus feels before he understands it. The water near the shore carries a new movement, one that does not belong to wind or tide. He stops. From higher ground, he turns his eye toward the horizon. There, cutting across the open water, is a shape that does not move like a living thing and does not belong to the sea itself. It is long and narrow, dark against the brightness of the day, rising and falling with the waves, but not yielding to them. A ship. Polyphemus has seen such things before, though rarely. They pass at a distance, most often, skirting the island as if sensing that it is not a place meant for them. This one does not turn away. It slows. The ship angles toward the shore, guided carefully into calmer water. Its movement is deliberate, controlled by hands rather than current. Polyphemus watches as it draws closer, every detail sharpening as it approaches. Small figures move upon it. Men. They lower a smaller craft and step down onto the sand, their movements quick and uncertain, as if the ground itself might shift beneath them. They speak to one another in low voices that do not carry far, sounds sharp and unfamiliar against the open air. Polyphemus does not move yet. He stands still, watching. Strangers are not part of his world. Nothing in his life has required him to consider what such arrivals mean. The island has always been enough. What enters it now does so without invitation and without understanding the rules by which it is governed. The men begin to explore. They touch the grass, test the ground, look inland with curiosity rather than caution. Some of them laugh quietly, relieved perhaps to have found land that does not resist them. Others keep glancing back toward the ship, measuring distance, weighing choices. Polyphemus feels no fear. The men are small. Their voices are thin. Their bodies move with a kind of tension that suggests uncertainty rather than strength. If they are a threat, they do not yet know how to be one. He turns away from them. The day is still young, and his work is not finished. The goats must be gathered before the light begins to fade. He guides them toward the cave, his presence enough to direct them without force. The familiar path rises beneath his feet, winding toward the shelter that has always held. Behind him, the men move inland. They notice the signs of life soon enough: the tracks, the tools, the abundance left without guard. They follow these signs with growing interest, unaware that each step draws them deeper into another being's domain. By the time Polyphemus reaches his cave, the light has shifted. The goats enter first, filling the space with sound and movement. He follows, sealing the entrance behind him with the great stone, shutting out the day as he always does. Inside, the cave is warm and dim, and somewhere beyond its walls, the strangers are moving closer, toward shelter, toward food, toward a meeting they do not yet understand. Polyphemus does not know this yet, but the quiet order of his life has already been broken. The cave fills with sound as Polyphemus settles his flock. Hooves scrape against stone. Wool brushes against rock walls. The air grows warm with the familiar smells of animals, milk, and fire that has burned here many times before. Polyphemus moves among the sheep with practiced ease, separating the young from the old, guiding them into their places without force. Only when the last of them is settled does he notice something is wrong. The cave does not feel as it should. The air carries a scent that does not belong, sharp, unfamiliar, carried in on breath and cloth, rather than earth or animal. His single eye sweeps the space slowly, adjusting to the dim light. He sees them then. Men. They stand clustered near the back of the cave, small against the vast curve of stone, their bodies stiff with surprise and uncertainty. They have taken food. Cheeses sit disturbed on the shelves. Bowls have been moved. The careful order of the cave has been touched by hands that do not know it. For a long moment, no one speaks. Polyphemus remains still, his great frame filling the entrance behind him, the stone sealing the world outside. The men exchange quick glances, understanding all at once that retreat is no longer possible. At last, one of them steps forward. He is not the largest, nor the strongest, but his posture is deliberate. His voice, when he speaks, is calm, measured, the voice of someone used to choosing words carefully. "We are travelers," the man says. "We come from the sea. We have entered your dwelling, seeking shelter and food." Polyphemus listens. The words mean little to him. Travelers, seeking, shelter. These are ideas shaped by a world where land belongs to many, where doors are meant to open. His cave has never been such a place. "You have taken what is mine," Polyphemus says at last. His voice is deep and slow, filling the space easily. It is not raised. It does not need to be. The men shift uneasily. The one who spoke before answers again. keeping his tone respectful. We believed the law of welcome would protect us, that a host gives food before asking questions. Polyphemus does not understand the law being offered to him. No one has ever given him food. No one has ever arrived here to be hosted. The idea that a stranger might claim rights simply by entering his space feels strange, even absurd. "Your laws are not my laws," Polyphemus says. He moves closer now, his shadow stretching across the cave floor. The men instinctively step back, pressing themselves against the stone. The man at the front tries once more. "We ask only for fair treatment. The gods themselves favor those who welcome strangers." At the mention of gods, Polyphemus's expression does not change. He does not fear them. He does not feel watched by them here. The cave has always answered to his strength alone. "I am stronger than your gods," he says simply, "and this place is mine." The meaning of this settles heavily in the air. The men understand now that they are not speaking to someone who shares their world. The words they rely on, law, custom, expectation, find no place to land. Polyphemus turns away from them. He moves toward the shelves, lifting bowls, inspecting what has been touched. His movements are unhurried, as though the presence of the men is already decided, already contained. Behind him, the strangers wait, their silence thick with unease. They have entered a world governed by strength rather than agreement, and they have done so without knowing how to leave it again. Polyphemus turns back toward the fire. He moves with the ease of habit, bending to tend the embers, adding fuel, restoring warmth to the space. The cave responds as it always does, light flickering across stone, shadows stretching and withdrawing with familiar rhythm. The men watch him closely now. They do not speak. They do not move. They understand instinctively that this is not a moment for argument. Whatever chance they believed they had to reason their way out of this place has already passed. The order of the cave has been reasserted, and they are part of it now, whether they wish to be or not. Polyphemus gathers food. He lifts cheeses from the shelves, breaking them apart with his hands, eating without ceremony. He drinks milk directly from the bowls, unconcerned by spillage. This is how he has always eaten, efficiently, without thought for audience or judgment. Only after he has eaten does he look at the men again. They stand close together, their bodies tense, their eyes tracking his every movement. They are quiet in a way that feels deliberate, as though silence itself might protect them. Polyphemus considers them. He does not think of them as guests. He does not think of them as enemies. He thinks of them as bodies that have entered his space without permission. What happens next follows the logic of his world. Polyphemus reaches out and takes two of the men. The movement is quick and decisive, not driven by rage, but by certainty. There is no negotiation, no warning beyond what has already been spoken. The cave does not echo with chaos, only with the sound of Polyphemus continuing the act of feeding, as he has always done. The others recoil, their voices catching in their throats. They understand now, fully, that they are not dealing with cruelty as they know it, but with a rule they cannot appeal to. In this place, strength defines order. What can be taken will be taken. Polyphemus eats, and when he is finished, he settles himself against the stone. The fire dims slightly. The cave grows quieter. Outside, night has already fallen. Inside, the remaining men press themselves into the deepest corner of the cave, their thoughts racing, their fear held tightly beneath silence. They do not know if morning will come for them. They do not know if the stone sealing the entrance will ever move again. Polyphemus lies down. He stretches his great body across the floor, untroubled, his breathing slow and heavy. His eye closes, and sleep comes to him easily, as it always has. This night is no different from others to him, but for the men trapped in the darkness, it becomes the longest night they have ever known. They wait, and in the waiting, one of them begins to think, not of strength, but of escape. The cave remains dark, but the darkness is no longer empty. It is filled with breath, with waiting, with the slow awareness of men who know that daylight alone will not save them. Polyphemus sleeps nearby, his great body stretched across the stone floor, his breathing deep and heavy, rolling through the cave like distant surf. The men do not sleep. They sit pressed together, backs against the cold rock, listening to the rhythm of the Cyclops' breath. Every sound matters now. Every pause between breaths becomes a space where thought can move. One of them watches Polyphemus closely. He has watched him since the moment they were trapped. The way he eats, the way he moves, the way his single eye commands the space when it is open, and how unguarded he becomes when it is closed. Strength alone, he knows, will never defeat a creature like this. So he turns instead to what they brought with them. Among the stores taken from the ship is wine. Not the thin drink meant for daily meals, but a dark, heavy wine, strong enough to burn as it goes down, thick with age and careful making. It had been given to them earlier on their journey, pressed upon them as a gift meant to be used sparingly, saved for moments of need. This is such a moment. They had not brought it to drink. They had brought it to trade, to soften strangers, to turn caution into welcome. Wine, in their world, is more than pleasure. It is an offering, a bridge, a way to slow the sharp edge of suspicion. All through the night, while Polyphemus slept, the men worked quietly. They prepared. They took the olive wood from within the cave, a branch thick and heavy, cut from a living tree long ago. They stripped it, shaped it, hardened its end in the embers until it darkened and sharpened, then set it aside where it could be reached without sound. And they waited for morning. When Polyphemus wakes, hunger returns to him as it always does. He rises, tends the fire, moves through the cave with the same certainty he always has. The men remain still, small shapes pressed into shadow. Before he reaches for them, one of the men steps forward. He holds the skin of wine in both hands, lifting it carefully, as one might lift something valuable, something meant to be admired before it is used. "Drink," the man says. "It is not like milk. It is stronger." Polyphemus pauses. He takes the skin, curious. He has never tasted anything like this. When he drinks, the wine spreads heat through his body, sharp and unfamiliar, warming him from the inside in a way no food ever has. He drinks again and again. The wine loosens him. It dulls the edge of his awareness, slows the certainty of his movements. His laughter comes unguarded now, low and heavy, echoing against the stone. "This is good," he says. He looks down at the man who offered it. "What is your name?" Polyphemus asks, "so I may know whom I eat last." The man answers without hesitation, "My name is Nobody." Polyphemus nods. "Nobody," he repeats, the word sliding easily into place. It means nothing to him. Names have never mattered here. Only bodies, only strength. He drinks once more. The cave begins to sway gently. The fire blurs. His limbs grow heavy, as though the stone itself is drawing him down. He lowers himself to the floor, still smiling, still holding the wineskin loosely in his hand. "Nobody," he murmurs again, "I will eat you last." Sleep takes him quickly now, deeper and faster than before. His breathing slows, and in the dim light of the cave, the men rise to their feet. They have not overpowered Polyphemus. They have outweighted him. The cave is quiet, but the quiet has changed. It is no longer the deep, settled silence of sleep. It is tense, held in place by listening bodies and waiting hands. The men move carefully now, each step placed with intention, each breath taken shallow and slow. Polyphemus lies where he fell. His chest rises and falls heavily. The wine has pulled him far from waking, dulling the world around him, softening the edge of his strength. His single eye is closed, unguarded, exposed in a way it has never been before. The men work together. They take the length of olive wood they prepared earlier, a stake cut from the cave itself. Its end hardened in the fire until it darkened and sharpened. It is heavy, awkward, never meant to be held by human hands. They lift it together, straining silently, guiding it toward its mark. For a moment, they hesitate. This is the point of no return. Then they act. The stake is driven forward with all the strength they have left. It meets resistance, then gives way. Polyphemus's body jerks violently as pain tears him from sleep. The sound that follows is not a word. It is a cry that fills the cave completely, a raw, shuddering sound that shakes the stone itself. Polyphemus thrashes, his hands sweeping blindly across the floor, knocking men aside as they scatter out of reach. He roars again, clutching at his face. The world he has known collapses into darkness. The single point through which everything once arrived is gone, replaced by burning, endless absence. He staggers to his feet, bellowing in confusion and fury, his voice carrying far beyond the cave. The other Cyclopes hear him. From across the island, they call out, their voices echoing faintly through the night. "What is it?" they shout. "Who is hurting you?" Polyphemus turns toward the sound, his hands pressed uselessly against his ruined eye. "Nobody," he roars. "Nobody is hurting me." There is a pause. The Cyclopes exchange confused words in the darkness outside. "If nobody is hurting you," they answer at last, "then it must be a sickness sent by the gods. Endure it." Their voices fade. Polyphemus stands alone again, swaying, blind and enraged, trapped in a world that has suddenly become sound and pain alone. He roars once more, a sound full of loss rather than threat, and begins to feel along the walls of the cave, searching for bodies he can no longer see. The men press themselves flat against the stone, scarcely breathing. They have taken his sight, but the cave still belongs to him, and the stone at the entrance has not yet been moved. Morning comes without light for Polyphemus. The cave shifts from night to day only by sound and temperature. The air cools slightly. The sheep begin to stir, their hooves scraping against stone, their bodies pressing restlessly toward the entrance they know will soon open. Polyphemus stands among them, blind. His hands move constantly now, sweeping the space around him, touching stone, touching wool, touching nothing. His breathing is uneven, pulled tight by pain and fury held together. The loss of sight has forced the world to collapse inward. What remains is texture, weight, sound. He remembers what has been taken. He remembers the voices. He remembers the word. Nobody. The stone at the mouth of the cave waits where it always has. Polyphemus moves toward it, guided by memory rather than vision. With effort, he presses his great hands against it and rolls it aside. The opening fills with morning air, cool and sharp, carrying the scent of grass and open land. The sheep move forward immediately. Polyphemus positions himself in the entrance, his hands outstretched, fingers spread wide. He has learned quickly. He will not allow the men to pass him again. One by one, the sheep move past him. Polyphemus feels each back carefully as it brushes beneath his hands. Wool, warmth, familiar shape. He presses down gently but firmly, ensuring that nothing else clings to them. The sheep pass, and pass, and pass. What Polyphemus does not feel are the men. They cling beneath the bellies of the largest rams, bound tightly with cords taken from the cave, their bodies pressed flat against living warmth. They move with the animals, silent and still, trusting the rhythm of the flock to carry them through. Polyphemus's hands move again and again across wool and muscle. Nothing breaks the pattern. No voice, no unfamiliar shape, no sudden resistance. The last ram passes beneath his touch. Polyphemus lets his hands fall. The cave empties. The sheep move out into the open land, spreading across the slopes as they always have. The familiar sounds of grazing return, comforting and unchanged. Polyphemus remains at the entrance. For a moment, he stands there in stillness, listening. The men are gone. He knows this now, not through sight, but through absence. The air beyond the cave feels wrong, too open, too empty. Something has been taken from him. He turns his head toward the sound of distant movement, toward the shore, toward the sea he has not seen since losing his eye. His jaw tightens. They have escaped, and the world will not return to what it was. The sound reaches Polyphemus before meaning does. Voices carried across open space, thin but clear against the steady breath of the sea. They come from below, From the shoreline, where the land breaks and the water begins, the men are no longer hiding. Polyphemus turns his head toward the sound, his body stiffening as he listens. Without sight, distance is harder to judge, but the tone tells him enough. The voices are lighter now, looser. The sound of fear has lifted from them. They believe they are safe. One voice rises above the others. It is the same voice that spoke in the cave. Calm, measured, certain. "You did not defeat us," the voice calls out. "It was I who blinded you. I am the one you must remember." Polyphemus's hands clench. The voice continues, carried clearly over the water. "My name is Odysseus, son of Laertes, king of Ithaca." For a moment, the world holds still. The name settles into Polyphemus's mind, sharp and complete, replacing the emptiness left behind by nobody. He feels the truth of it immediately. Names, he understands now, do matter. They anchor memory. They give shape to anger. Rage surges through him. He bends, grasping at the ground, tearing loose massive stones with hands that know the weight of earth better than any tool. He hurls them toward the sound, guided only by hearing and fury. The stones crash into the sea, sending water high into the air. Waves surge outward, rocking the ship as it pulls away from the shore. The men shout, scrambling to steady themselves, their laughter gone. But the distance has already grown too great. Polyphemus roars. The sound tears from his chest, raw and unrestrained, filled with loss and humiliation. He has been wounded not only in body, but in pride. The world he ruled alone has been entered, altered, and escaped by beings far smaller than himself. He lifts his face toward the sky he can no longer see. And now, at last, he calls to his father. "Poseidon," Polyphemus cries, "hear me." The sea answers with a low, distant sound, not yet a wave, but a presence. "Grant me this," he continues, his voice breaking through the air. "If the man who blinded me is truly your enemy, let him never reach his home. Or, if fate will not allow that, let him return late, broken and alone." The words are not careful. They are not measured. They are a wound spoken aloud. The sea stirs. Water shifts against stone. The wind carries the sound outward, away from the island, toward paths unseen. What is asked cannot be taken back. Once spoken, such words move on their own. Polyphemus lowers his head. The strength that once filled his world feels distant now, heavy and unfocused. He stands blind at the edge of his land, having learned too late the weight of names and the cost of speaking them. Behind him, the island remains. Ahead of him, the sea continues its endless motion, carrying away the men who changed his life, and carrying forward a curse that will follow them far beyond his knowing. The sounds of the ship fade. At first, they linger. The creak of wood, the splash of oars, the distant voices carried unevenly across the water. Polyphemus stands motionless, straining to hold on to them. turning his head slowly, as if sound itself might reveal what his eye no longer can. Then, even that is gone. What remains is the sea. It breathes as it always has, rising and falling against the shore, indifferent to what has been taken from him. The wind moves across Polyphemus's skin, cool and familiar, but now it brings no comfort. Without sight, the open space feels vast and unanchored, as though the island itself has grown larger and less knowable. Polyphemus steps back from the shore. Each movement is cautious. His hands reach outward, touching stone, touching earth, relearning distances that once required no thought. The land he has known all his life has not changed, but his way of moving through it has. He returns slowly to the cave. The stone still waits near the entrance, heavy and unmoved. He finds it by memory and touch, pressing against it with familiar effort. Inside, the air is cooler, darker, unchanged. The cave has kept its shape, even as he has not. The sheep are there. They press close to him as he enters, their bodies warm, their sounds low and steady. They do not recoil from his blindness. They do not judge his injury. They know only his presence, and they accept it as they always have. Polyphemus sinks to the stone floor among them. He listens to their breathing. He lets the rhythm settle him, anchoring him to something that has not been taken. His hands move slowly across their backs, counting without numbers, confirming that what remains is real. But the loss returns, not as pain, that has dulled, but as memory. He remembers the cave as it was before, the certainty of space, the ease of movement, the confidence of seeing. He remembers the voice that named itself, Odysseus. The name sits heavily in his mind now, impossible to dislodge. It carries with it the shape of the men, the sound of their laughter as they escaped, the moment when his world slipped beyond his reach. Polyphemus does not weep. Tears belong to a different way of being. His grief moves inward, heavy and silent, settling into his chest like stone. He has lost something that cannot be restored, and there is no one to explain it to him, no law to appeal to, no recompense to be offered. He breathes. The cave breathes with him. Outside, the island continues as it always has. The goats will graze. The seasons will turn. The sea will move without pause. Polyphemus remains, blind now, but still vast, still present, still bound to this land that shaped him and that he will never leave. His life will go on, altered but unbroken, marked by a single moment that divided what was from what will be. Somewhere far away, the curse he spoke has already begun its long journey. Here, in the quiet dark of the cave, Polyphemus settles into stillness once more, holding what remains and learning, slowly, how to live within the shape of loss. The island grows quiet again, and for Polyphemus, the world narrows, not to emptiness, but to endurance. As the story settles, the ancient world grows quiet once more. The places remain, even as the moment passes. Stone holds its shape. Paths rest where they have always been, worn smooth by time rather than memory. In Greek mythology, stories do not vanish when they end. They linger, not as events, but as presence. A mountain remains long after the footsteps have faded. The sea continues its slow movement, indifferent to names and outcomes alike. You can imagine the land at rest now. The palace stands silent beneath the sky. Columns catch the last light of the day before shadow returns. Courtyards empty, and the warmth stored in stone releases itself slowly into the evening air. Somewhere nearby, the sea breathes against the shore. Waves arrive without effort, then withdraw again, leaving the surface of the water smooth and dark. The horizon softens, and the line between sky and sea becomes less distinct. Time moves differently here. There is no need to follow it, no need to mark where one moment ends and another begins. The ancient world continues in its own rhythm, steady and unhurried. In these stories, gods once walked among mortals. Heroes crossed land and sea. Monsters rose and fell. And yet, what remains most constant is the stillness that follows. You might imagine a path now, not one that leads anywhere in particular, but one that simply exists. It curves gently through open land, bordered by stone and earth, familiar and unchanged. There is nothing required of you along this path, no destination to reach, no choice to make. The path continues whether you follow it or not. Above, the sky deepens. Stars appear one by one, distant and steady, placed gently into the dark. They remain unmoving, watching over land and sea alike, as they have for countless nights before this one. The world feels wide here and calm. Stories return to the places that shaped them. The sea keeps its secrets. The land holds its silence. And as everything settles back into its natural balance, there is nothing more for the story to do. It has found its place. And somewhere, beyond the edge of the land and the darkening sea, the ferry of knowledge continues its quiet passage, its lantern dimmed, its wake smoothing behind it, carrying stories gently from one shore to another before slipping once more into the night.